Hi everybody, welcome back to Cooking with Katrina. So fall's here, my favorite season, and I've got some good stuff that we're gonna make, some like comfort food when it's getting kind of chilly out and you just wanna have a night in. So today we are going to make butternut squash mac and cheese. It's really good. And we are also going to make a no-bake apple pie in a jar. So first what we're gonna do, in order for the noodles, the pasta, to cook, we had to start cooking those before the show, so we actually need to drain them. So we're actually gonna turn the stove off, and first thing we're gonna do is drain the noodles. I just used 1 box of pasta for this, so that's all you need, depending on how many people you're cooking for. Okay. And we're just gonna let those drain for a minute. So quickly now, we've got some water boiling here, and what we have is 1 butternut squash. And so what we're gonna do is cut that up, and we're gonna cut it pretty thin because we want it to cook kind of quickly. So, and squash is hard to cut, just so everybody knows, if you haven't dealt with it before. So, let's put a little power into it. Peeling the squash. Some people kind of cut the squash into a couple big chunks with the skin still on it and put it in the boiling water if you're gonna make it for like Thanksgiving and like, you know, mash it up. This, we don't wanna do it that way because we need it cubed a little bit. So you wanna take a knife and we're gonna wanna go down, I've already done it because it takes a while, but you go down the squash like this and just take the skin off. So we are just, again, gonna chop some of this up pretty thin so it cooks quickly. So aside from 1 butternut squash and 1 box of pasta, you can use elbow pasta, really any kind you would like to make the mac and cheese with. So you need a box of pasta, 1 butternut squash, you need a 1/2 cup of vegetable broth, and you also need 3/4 cups of milk, and I'm using 1%. I think skim might be a little bit too watery, so again, I'm using 1%. And we need 3 tablespoons of butter, and we need about 1.5 cups of shredded sharp cheddar cheese. I'm using the white one, not orange. And then we're gonna need about like a tablespoon of salt and pepper each. And then when we actually go to cook it, we're gonna put a little bit of breadcrumbs on the top, just so it crisps up a little bit. And I am using panko breadcrumbs. So just so everybody knows what kind we are using. Really gotta cut the squash. Maybe we should have cut a little bit before we started. And again, the reason we're just cutting it so small is just so it cooks quickly for the purposes of the show. If you have a little bit more time, if you make bigger chunks, they're still gonna cook. It's made about a little bit over 4 cups. And so for this recipe, you want 3 to 4, which is why I'm just using 1 whole squash. These are gonna take a little bit. So we're gonna actually hop over to the other side and we are going to start the dessert. So over to this side, because actually this is gonna take a little while to cook too. So we're gonna start them both. So I've got just a saucepan. And what we're gonna do is we have 3 different apples. I'm using 3 because of the size of what I'm doing. If you're making this for a lot of people or you're gonna make a bigger one, you're gonna need more apples, obviously. So when I do something like this, I like to mix different kinds of apples because I think it gives it better flavor. So I've got a Honeycrisp, a Red Delicious, and then a Granny Smith, just so everybody knows. You can use a Macintosh, a Cortland, anything you want, but again, I just like to mix them. So we are just going to slice down around the core of the apple, just like that. I'm gonna set that aside. And we are just going to cut these up in chunks and we're gonna put them in there. So, they don't need to be tiny chunks, they're gonna cook down, but I wanna just slice these up. So for this dish, aside from the apples, the other stuff that you are going to need is some lemon juice. You can use a fresh lemon. I have actual lemon juice that is coming in a container from the store. Usually when you're doing an apple thing like this, you usually just squirt a little bit of lemon on it. So we've got some lemon juice. We need some ground cinnamon, some caramel sauce, some butter, like a little over a half a stick. We have brown sugar, we have some Cool Whip topping, and we have some pre-made oatmeal cookies. So again, this is kind of like a no-bake apple pie in a jar. So we're actually not going to be making a pie crust. That's what we're using the oatmeal cookies for. So I also made this the other night too, and it's really good. I actually made these two dishes that I'm making here. I made them at the same time the other night to check them out, and it was good. So now we're gonna move on to the Honeycrisp. Same thing, cut around the core. Honeycrisp is actually my favorite apple if I'm eating it. I think it's delicious. Once I cut this, I'm just gonna go over and check on those. Give them a little stir quick. Once this apple stuff starts cooking, it is going to smell so good in here. It smells delicious while it's cooking. The cinnamon and the brown sugar and the apple together is just amazing. It smells like fall, really. It's the only way I can think of to describe it. It just smells like fall, and I love fall, so. Okay, so now we're on to the last one. And again, same thing. Slice it down around the core. Okay, so it may not look like a lot when you are first looking at the apples, but 3 apples for this is actually quite a bit. I don't know if you can see in here, but there's quite a bit of apples in the saucepan. So that is good. So we're just gonna take a little bit of this and we're just gonna squeeze a little bit over there. Kind of helps with, apples tend to get brown, so it kind of helps with it not doing that. Now we are going to take the brown sugar, and I just filled this little jar, and I'm kind of just eyeing this based upon what I'm doing, but I want it to taste good, so I'm just going to actually throw the whole jar in there. Brown sugar is good. It's going to make a good sauce with the apples, so that's what we want. Now we're going to take some ground cinnamon, and we are going to put some cinnamon there. Again, just kind of eyeing stuff here. And we are going to toss it quick. And now I'm going to take the stick of butter, and I'm literally going to just kind of put it in the center of these, and then it's going to cook down a little bit and seep underneath, and then once it starts to melt, you're just going to keep stirring. So we are going to put this on, and at first, you're going to want to watch this a little bit, because after a little while, if you have it on too high and you're not constantly stirring, the apples are going to start sticking to the bottom of the pan. So we're gonna put this on like medium high, and that's just to kind of get the juices flowing and to melt the butter a little bit. And then we're gonna check on them, and then we're gonna lower it a little bit. Now we're gonna go back over here, get rid of those, and see how this is coming. They're softening right up, so those just need a couple more minutes. If you're gonna make this at home, you can put this in a casserole dish. You can put this really in anything you want, because again, we cooked a whole box of pasta. Today, for the show purposes, we are gonna use these cute, tiny little things, and we're just gonna make a couple little individual ones just to kind of show. So you also can do that. A lot of people have those at home. So it's kind of cute if you're having people over for like a dinner party, kind of fun. So while those finish cooking, we are going to grab the pasta, because it's finished draining, and we are going to put the pasta in the bowl, because then we are going to need to mix everything together. Oh, also I should mention that for this, we also need a food processor, like a blender or something, because once these are cooked, the butternut squash is going to go in the food processor with the other ingredients that I mentioned, aside from the cheese, and we're gonna puree those, and then that's gonna get tossed with the noodles and the cheese. So you need to have one of those handy. See how this is coming? I'm just kind of touching them to see if they're getting soft. Yep, just another minute. So while those are still kind of going, we're gonna come back over here to the apples, and we are going to kind of toss those again. Make sure we're getting the butter down in there so the butter's melting. I can already see it starting to melt. This is gonna smell so good in here. Everyone that's in here is going to be so hungry, because one of the best smells is apple pie filling, I think. So I'm really excited about that. So again, we're just gonna watch that. Stir this again. So I'm gonna tell you a quick little story. So I was trying this out, because I love stuff like this. I just didn't know how other people feel about it. So on the show, I kind of wanted to try it out on a few people. And I tend to have my aunt and uncle come over, and I kind of have them test out my stuff. So anyhow, my father doesn't like cheese. However, he will eat pizza and grilled cheese, but he doesn't like cheese. So when I said I was making this, and he said, well, mac and cheese, I'm not gonna eat that. I said, well, there's not really cheese in it. It's just, you know, the butternut squash stuff is just called mac and cheese because you bake it. So we made it, and everybody was excited, everybody was eating it, and he picked up a forkful to put in his mouth, and of course it was stringy because there was cheese, and he looked at me and he said, there's cheese in this, isn't there? And I said, no, Michael, just eat it, it's fine. And he ate it, and he said, it's good, but I'm not happy with you because I know there's cheese in this. But I just want everybody to know that he does not like cheese, and he did eat the whole thing. So it's very good, obviously, if that happened, but I just thought I would tell everybody. Okay, so I think these actually are done. I'm gonna stir this again. They both require a lot of, that one doesn't require as much stirring, but this one you kind of wanna keep track of. Oh my gosh, this smells delicious. It's already starting to like sauce up. And of course, the apples, when you cook them, are gonna release juices, and it's gonna kind of get, you know, kind of like you're making applesauce, kind of. But you don't want them to get that, you know, you don't want it to be that mushy. You definitely want to have chunks of apples still. But this is looking good, and it smells delicious. So this is, again, gonna be a little while, but the apples are already starting to cook down, you can tell. Okay. We're gonna turn this off and grab these. The sides of these get warm, just so everybody knows why I'm using these. Okay, so we are gonna strain this, dump it right out just like you would the pasta. It just takes a minute to let that get going. Okay, so I'm gonna come over here. Oh, I should also mention, I forgot to do that. Once we put these in a thing, or whatever container you're gonna put them in, even though everything's fully cooked, we're gonna wanna put them in the oven so it kind of crisps up like you would with a mac and cheese. So I've got the oven preheated to 375 right now because we're gonna toss those in there for a few minutes just so the panko and the stuff on the top kind of crisps up a little bit. Well, those finished draining quickly. I am just going to give this another stir because we are gonna be over here for another minute before we can come back to this. This looks so good. Okay. So, we have the butternut squash that's all cooked. What we're gonna do, I brought my food processor. We are going to get all the butternut squash into the food processor. I must warn you, it gets really close to the top, so, but that's okay. I mean, as long as it's not overflowing. So don't worry about that once it starts to cook, or not cook, but once it starts to blend up. You might get a little nervous, but it's fine. Okay. It's gonna kind of look like baby food a little bit. That's what we're going for. That's what we want with this. So we are going to put the lid on, lock it, and we are going to turn this on for a minute, so excuse the loud noise. Okay, so now, it doesn't have to be completely taken care of at this point. Now we're gonna add the other stuff because we need to puree it again with this. So this is a ½ cup of vegetable broth. We're gonna pour that right in there. And this is 3/4 of a cup, if we can open it, of, again, 1% milk. And then I have 3 tablespoons of butter, and it started to soften a little bit at room temperature. Put that in there. That won't fit down that little hole. Lock that back in place. Get that off here because it is greasy. And then I have about 1 tablespoon of salt and pepper, and I just put them in the same thing and they're mixed together. So it's about, excuse me, like a teaspoon-ish. Not a tablespoon, that's a lot. Okay, so I'm gonna put this back in and we're gonna turn that back on. So excuse the noise again. Okay. Just want to make sure that it's all mixed together in there. A couple spots around the top that didn't get blended in, so I'm just kind of pushing it down with a spoon. And then I'm just going to turn it on just for another like 5 seconds just so it blends up. Okay. We're going to take the lid off, take this off. Now what we're going to do is we are going, I'm just holding the blade in here. We are going to dump this on the pasta. Maybe should have brought a bigger bowl. And I'm just going to scrape all the excess stuff out of here because it's so good. I want to make sure we get it all. We don't waste any. Okay. So, set that back over there. And what I'm going to do is kind of go around the edges a little bit, kind of toss it underneath, so you don't want to like scoop down and mix with this size bowl because it's going to come out. Okay, so now for the cheese. So again, I have, what I'm using here is equivalent to 1½ cups. of the sharp cheddar. And I'm not gonna put it all in at once because I'm gonna kind of, again, toss it so it gets down in. And rest of this one. Same thing again. And then once I get it all in, we're gonna do a big stir, but I just don't want it to start falling out of the bowl. All right, here's the last little bit. And just for 1 second, I hear bubbling noises coming from the apples, so we do have to kind of check on these and stir them and adjust the temperature if need be, because we do not want those burning. But they've got a good sauce going, so I don't think they're gonna stick, but they look delicious. So again, we've got this on medium-high. And, oh, that one's too small. Not the right lid, but this one. Just gonna put a lid over it, just to keep everything in there. Okay, so. You don't wanna lose any of the cheese. Cheese is good. Okay. Again, we're just gonna get it all underneath there. Sticking to the spoon. Okay, so now we're gonna give it a couple big stirs, get everything mixed up in there. It's so good, I'm so excited about this. And you don't want to overcook the noodles too. You kind of want them a little bit al dente because of the fact that they're going to be going in there. And you don't want it to be mushy. So just be mindful of that. Okay. So it's all stirred and everything's still hot. So the cheese is actually starting to get stringy already, which is good. Now what we're going to do is we are going to take these two cute little things. I'm so excited about these. And we are just going to scoop some of the pasta into here. And I use these cute little squiggly noodles. And I'm gonna be honest with you, I really tried to remember what they were called. Cava something, I don't know. We'll figure it out later. But they're really cute and I really liked them, so that's why we use this kind instead of elbow noodles. So everybody knows. I'm just gonna kind of make small little scoops into this just because I don't want it to fall out. One couple more to add on the top. Okay, so now what we're gonna do is take some of these panko breadcrumbs and we are literally just going to dump some on the top so they can crispen up. And clearly I'm making a mess, but we'll wipe up in a minute. So now again, 375, we're gonna pop these in there. We're not gonna leave them in for very long. 5, maybe 10 minutes because of the size of them. If you were doing something bigger, I'm gonna say about 15. If you're doing a whole casserole dish, I'm gonna tell you to leave in for like a half hour. Okay, so we are just going to set these in the oven. And we are going to close the door and let those cook. I'm not gonna set the timer because I know I need to come back and keep checking on them. Okay, I'm just gonna set this over here and just quickly, I'm just gonna wipe this area up because there is stuff everywhere. I'm not putting this on the floor. There's a garbage bag under here. Okay, so again, this is hot. Okay, so these are doing really well. They're really starting to cook up. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna get the jars ready because in about a minute and a half, these are gonna be good to go. So I've got 3 little cute little mason jars here. And what we are going to do is we're gonna take oatmeal cookies. For what I'm doing, I'm gonna see kind of what fits in there. Depending on the size of the jar, depends on how many cookies, you may be able to do 2, maybe 3. So we're gonna do 2 in each and then see if we wanna add a third. And we're literally just kind of crumbling these cookies up into the bottom of the jar. Really simple. You don't wanna leave the chunks too big, but you don't want them to be too small either. So I think we're just gonna do 2. Then we are going to go to the third jar. That smells so good. I'm really excited. Okay, one more. And these oatmeal cookies, just so everybody knows, do not have raisins in them. A lot of people put raisins in their oatmeal cookies, but I don't know how that would taste. It may not matter, but decided not to do that. Okay, so these are ready. This we're gonna turn off because those are good to go. Just gonna give them one last stir. These are warm, remember, so now what we're gonna do is we are gonna take these, we are going to put some right in these jars. Just like that. Put some in all 3. It smells so good. Juices are everywhere. More scoop on this one and that one. Okay. So now what we are going to do is, got some Cool Whip. We are going to top these off with some Cool Whip. You know what, you could even use ice cream. That would probably be good. I just really love Cool Whip. So, and I like a lot of Cool Whip. Can't tell. Another scoop. Okay, now, finishing touches, we are going to drizzle a little caramel sauce on top of these. Okay, there we go. No bake apple pie in a jar, delicious. We're gonna set these over here. And now we are going to find these, and we're actually going to take the mac and cheeses out because I think they're probably done because again, it was already cooked. We just want to brown them. Try not to drop these. I don't have a good handle with these little pot holders on these little things. Okay, scoop these over to the side. And again, I needed to use those because they're so cute. I couldn't not. So there we have it. Butternut squash, mac and cheese, no bake apple pie in a jar, and you have some comfort food at home for fall. So thank you everybody for watching, and we will see you next time.